It's time to start your morning by taking 5. Here's your host, Matt McMaster.
You're listening to Take 5, a quick 5-minute take on the biggest things happening in Nebraska sports. I am your host, Matt McMaster, and today is the day the college basketball national championship will be played. A bittersweet day, as we will not have college basketball for roughly, let me do the math here, 8 months after today. But tonight, an incredible season, a really competitive season will come to an end. A historic season, and where we saw 4 number 1 seeds all make the Final Four for the first time in 17 years. A season where in January and February you could kind of see that the top of the country was incredible and that this was going to be a incredibly competitive tournament amongst the top teams, and that's exactly what we've got, and that's exactly what we enjoyed over the weekend. 2 absolutely great games to watch and to view with thrilling ends. We'll speak first about Auburn and Florida. Florida ends up pulling away with the victory over the number 1 overall seed, the Auburn Tigers. Let me tell you something right now. I mean, Florida's performance in the second half was absolutely incredible. Their shot-making ability and their offense was something to see. And, you know, what was so impressive about Florida's win is that what they had to accomplish and what they did in the second half was such a stark contrast from what happened in the first half, because Auburn was up 9 after 20 minutes of play, and they controlled that game. I mean, everything was easier for Auburn when they were taking on the Gators in that first half, whether it be on the offensive end, getting into their sets, and on the defensive end. I mean, they just had more active hands and just seemed like they had more of a response for a lot of what Florida was trying to do. And so for Florida to kind of flip that script in the second half and make proper adjustments, switching on screens in the second half and just hitting their shots and getting momentum and taking that momentum and running with that momentum, it was a really impressive to watch. And at the end of the game, we've talked about it a lot, Walter Clayton Jr. is a closer, and his second consecutive 30-point game in the NCAA tournament. He's the first player to do that since Larry Bird, an incredible accomplishment. And this is something that he's done all season and all tournament long. He closed out the game against UConn. He closed out the game against Texas Tech, and he closed out the game against Auburn. And now he'll have an opportunity to put a bow on what has been one of the more impressive NCAA tournament single performances or single runs tonight when he takes on Houston. The Cougars and the Duke Blue Devils had an incredible game on Saturday. Duke did a really good job of controlling the paint against Houston. They got a lot of the looks that they were looking for within the paint area. They were able to use their skill and their mid-range shooting, just an ability off the dribble to dictate the pace of that game. I was really impressed with how they were able to compete on the boards and compete physically with Houston. But at the end of the day, Kelvin Sampson and his squad just wore out what we thought was the best team remaining in this tournament. And a lot of people were shocked about the ending of that game. And I think when Houston was down 6 with a minute to go, when Cooper Flagg makes a massive block, you're thinking, this game's probably over. But, for the people who were surprised that it occurred, I wasn't, because, and not because I'm smart or anything like that, this happened earlier in the year. How Houston beat Duke is exactly how Houston beat Kansas. I think it was back in January. We're same situation. They were down by 6. They make a 3. They cut it to 3. Their press, their full court press, and just their coaching in that regard from Kelvin Sampson is absolutely incredible. And they were able to steal the ball, hit another 3, and then win that game in overtime. And, man, it's a learning lesson for Jon Scheyer. His team did not win that game because they were not prepared to execute properly down the stretch to close out that game against an intense Houston Cougars press. So the fact that Houston won that game, I think, just goes to show you how great of a coach Kelvin Sampson is. And, I think you start having more of a convo about John Shire and is he really that good, which I think he is, but I do think there are some questions now after, when Texas came back against Arkansas and won that game, I didn't really view it as a choke. When Florida came back and beat Texas Tech, I didn't really view it as a choke because I just think that Texas Tech had enough time and they caught heat and they made the shots that they weren't making all day. Same thing with Florida. Florida had a closer in Walter Clayton, and there wasn't a ton the other team could do. Their opponent just got hot at the exact right time and ended up winning the game. This was a choke. I mean, Duke had the ball in hand. They were ready to go. They were going to win the game, and they just made mistake after mistake and were not prepared to get that ball in bounds. So Houston versus Florida tonight, I think it'll be a great matchup. This is all about pace, right? If Florida plays quicker, if Florida's able to get in transition, if Florida's able to get things going on offense and not allow Houston to set up their incredible defense, I think the Gators are going to win this game. If Houston can control the pace on offense, make some shots, and be able to set up their defense, it's going to be really, really tough for Florida to win the game. And so you're going to see a lot of physical battles down low in the paint. You're going to see some real chess match being played between Sampson and Todd Golden in terms of who is dictating the pace of the game. I think that, looking at the bets here, Florida is a minus 1.5 point favorite. Taking Houston plus money, whether it be plus 1.5 or just plus money line, to me is just a great value bet. They are a damn good team. They could win this game tonight. So if you can get plus money on the money line or just take the points in general, I really do think it's a high value bet. I like the over. I think Florida's going to win this game. And so that's why I think the over is a really good bet. Right now it's at about 140. I think this game very easily can be a 72-70 contest. The Duke-Houston game just covered by a half point, and that was kind of the similar pace that I think these two teams will play. But I think Florida, with what they have, with Walter Clayton Jr., with the depth that they possess, I think that they bring a uniqueness in the fact that they can play against the physicality of Houston while having high-quality shot makers like Condon and Hawk and Clayton Jr. and then, Chinyelu down low as well, is going to pose a big threat to the Houston size and physicality too. So I like the Florida in this one. I do think there's a value bet with Houston money line, but I'll take the over for my bet today. All right, that's been Take 5, and I've been Matt McMaster.